All right, let's get into it. Today, quick episode, and hopefully something that has something convicting for you. I know that I feel passionate enough about it that I decided to record this after I'd put my son down to sleep tonight. I was gonna go to bed early. We have speaker school this weekend, and I could have put this off, but this is something that's come up enough thematically that I definitely wanted to address. So for those of you that like more of the rant episodes, you're going to appreciate this. Okay, so the other day I got asked, what is one of the toughest things about coaching? Like, this was a pretty broad question, but immediately I knew the answer. And I knew the answer because it has a lot to do with what I think is going on societally, which is you're going to see some consistency in themes that I've talked about in the past, but also just something that I don't think people call out enough amongst other coaches. Because coaches and leaders can talk about the people that they lead or lead with, because leadership is, you don't have to have a title to be a formal leader. But all of this coincides with one another. So the toughest thing for me about coaching, the thing that is the hardest about coaching, doesn't matter when I was a strength coach, doesn't matter in the context I do it now, anything like that, is when you're working with somebody who won't answer the call for themselves. Meaning they think they're getting out of their comfort zone. They think they're doing the work. They think a certain thing, but really a lot of it is them hiding, and mainly hiding from themselves. And I saw this with athletes. I mean, I had the good fortune to work with some of the best athletes in the world. And unlike a lot of people out there that say this stuff, right? This is verifiable, right? You can see this stuff online. You can talk to other coaches that watch me coach. So it seems to be avant-garde now for everybody to say that they work with Olympians and NFL, which, by the way, is only impressive to a point. Working with kids in many instances is far more impressive. But all that aside, right, there were plenty of athletes that I worked with that, got caught up in the lifestyle, got caught up in the money, got caught up in, the culture, whatever that was, and they still had a successful playing career. The issue is when you don't confront yourself, when you don't confront whatever it is you might be hiding from, or you're trying to mask with whatever behaviors or whatever things that you enjoy doing, whether that is partying or, some people, when you look at coaches, they just bury themselves in educate. I know somebody that they're going for their third doctorate, right? So we all have our thing that allows us to kind of say it's a passion, but really we're hiding from some aspect of ourselves. But let me rewind. When I say the hardest thing for me as a coach is when you're working with somebody that's hiding from themselves, it's when they're not doing the stuff that helps them grow individually. Like, that's great if they have success in their career. You want that. But success in your career doesn't necessarily mean that you're growing as an individual. It just doesn't. And when I say at the beginning, when I talk about this societally and the bigger issue, I'm talking about commitment. People always make, they have these quotes like, oh, tough times don't last, tough people do. Pick your leadership quote. But when things are hard, whether that's financially or in any other way, most people actually kind of clam up. They get tight. And for as much talk, and this is something that went out in our newsletter, is going out in our newsletter this week, for as much talk as there is about people stepping out of their comfort zone, oh, iron sharpens iron, we're going to grow, brother, this stuff that we praise, we post about, and others tell other people they should do it, most people don't. They trick themselves into thinking that they're doing the hard stuff, right? What I say is they confuse adjacent familiarity with true discomfort. So I have a buddy, love him to death. And by the way, he said I could air this out because he held himself accountable on this when we were talking about it. He's like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to do this. He's got all these kind of fitness challenges for him. And I'm like, why are you doing that? He's like, I just want to get out of my comfort zone. I'm like, bud, you love working out. You're a workout junkie. What do you mean get out? He's like, well, yeah, but I've never done a race like that. I'm like, I'll just call him Jason for the sake of this. I'm like, Jason, but ultimately, for you to achieve that, you get to do more of something that you actually already like. So I'm not saying that it's not hard. I'm not saying that at all. Brother, that's amazing if you do all these things. But I am saying, like, this isn't really getting out of your comfort zone. And most important, and remember, him and I are friends, so I can talk to him like this. I'm like, these aren't the things that align with what you told me makes you uncomfortable. And for him, there's some areas in his personal life he wants to where he's like, I struggle to be vulnerable. I struggle to open up to my spouse, even struggle to open up to my kids as much as I want. Another person, right, they bury themselves in another activity. They struggle, with leading their team right now. Do not confuse adjacent familiarity with discomfort. So what I mean is there's a coach that says they're challenging themselves. because they've, switched some training method, or now they're coaching high school athletes or whatever. But it's still the same type of problems. Or there's a business leader that says they're delegating more. But in reality, whenever there's some big decision, they jump in and take over. Or the person like my buddy who admitted it, right? He thinks he's stretching himself because he signed up for another physical challenge, right? But what they actually avoid is anything that exposes them emotionally or socially. Now, haters will say, well, of course you're going to say this, you sell a product that is all about having hard conversations and you're just saying that to try to trick people. No, I'm not. And first of all, let's reverse engineer that. I have built my life and my career around using calculated forms of stress to help people overcome limitations. In strength and conditioning, that was various constraints when we taught them speed or agility, various forms of overload with strength training. In my role now, like leadership development and coaching, of course, we're going to have people come and do uncomfortable things. That's what leadership is. For as many people that want to keep talking and waxing philosophical about leadership, right? Leadership is a dynamic, complex process of reciprocal influence with two or more people, right? And there's self-leadership to boot, not to mention the fact that the water leadership swims in, to steal a phrase from my buddy Scott Livingston, is fundamentally power dynamics, relationships, conflict resolution. So of course I'm going to teach things that make people have to deal with that. That's the job, right? It drives me nuts when I see all this leadership shit out there, and sorry for my language, but it is what it is. And still to this day, it's wishy-washy, think positive, treat people how you want to be treated. Of course, those things are important. But most people in leadership positions are drowning. They're burnout, they're stuck, they have an unmotivated team, or they have a pretty good team, but then the other half of the team is assholes. And then if they're not assholes, the minute their great team accomplishes everything, the person in charge of them and above the other leader changes everything and the whole project gets wiped out. Leadership is a shit show, folks. It's a shit show. So if you fundamentally don't want to do things that make you uncomfortable, but you want to lead, you need to change how you speak about, like, oh yeah, I want to be a leader. That's not true. There's nothing about it that's a walk in the park. And I don't care if you're a leader of a team with 2 people or a Fortune 500 or just talking about the leadership of your household. But I am tired of people talking about how they want to get out of their comfort zone and grow, but then they just do the same old shit. And for sure, I hold myself accountable to this too. Back in the day, I'd go to the same strength and conditioning conferences and sports science conferences. And eventually I just got tired of it, not because I didn't want to keep learning, not because I didn't think there wasn't more to learn, but I'm like, golly, this just isn't challenging me the way that I think I need to be challenged, right? So I started finding different forms of education. I mean, the whole reason I got into speaking, other than wanting to help people, is I guess you could say, a fetish for trying to expose myself and my own weaknesses, right? In that context, do I really know what I'm talking about? Could I get in front of an audience? What are the gaps in my knowledge? By putting myself out there, I was able to do that. And so, yeah, for sure, there's a part of it that I think about on the eve of speaker school. I look at the people that signed up and I'm like, oh, I'm so proud. These people are here. We're going to have a hell of a weekend. We're going to do so many great, but then I also feel a sense of loss. I feel a sense of loss for people that didn't come, because every year we get people that say they want to do this and they want to do that. And there's one of you, and I love you. You know who you are because you listen to the podcast. For 5 years, you've been saying, I want to come to speaker school or the apprentice. And every year you got an excuse, right? None of us are ever going to have enough time, money, anything like that. So that's what breaks my heart about coaching, is when you meet somebody, and it doesn't matter who they are, and they tell you about all these things and you believe them. You believe that they want to accomplish it. You believe they want to do it. But then you watch them consistently take action and make these kind of self-validating excuses as to why not. Just extrapolate it. Somebody's struggling to get a job. They swear they want a job. They want to make, they want to find something they're passionate about. Yet they're not really getting their ass up and going to, job fairs. They're kind of just getting on there hoping something comes to them. Or you swear, somebody that wants to get in shape, but they're really not doing the consistent thing. They're waiting for the next big fad diet only to say it worked for a little bit or didn't work. And then they can blame the world. Or you have the person that says they want to write a book or, insert whatever there. None of that shit comes easy. And you have to ask yourself, how many years, months, weeks, whatever unit of time you want to like use, are you going to use that excuse? How much, right? Like, because that's awesome if you're used to challenging yourself at work and with different projects and you've managed people, but you need to seek out and identify the thing that's really going to scare you a little bit. Okay, it's really going to scare you. And Diego, I'm looking at you, buddy. One of my close friends, he goes, I'm used to challenging myself at work. I'm scared of doing speaker school because getting up and speaking in front of others, that makes me nervous. But he's like, I love this. He said, but I realize that that's good because it means I'm doing something worthwhile. Right? So I know, even in the context of my buddy, Jason, right, that doing the marathon makes him nervous. But think deeper than that. This kind of has to hit you in the chest. I want you to like audit what your actual comfort zone is. When was the last time you felt real nerves? Not from fear of failure, but from stepping into like something truly unknown. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know what's going to be the result of this. What is the one domain you keep telling yourself you're going to tackle someday, but then you don't because it threatens your ego? And because you're really smart, and I'm not being a smart ass, all of you listening to this are very educated and expect a lot of yourself, but that works against you because you actually believe your own bullshit. You'll say, hey, well, yeah, I can't do it right now. I'm in the middle of my master's, or I'm in the middle of this, or you're always going to be in the middle of it. I know because I've been there. I have my master's, the doctorate thing, the book, the kid, the divorce, like these things will always happen. And then when you do get to a season where it's chill, then the kid gets sick, or now you've got to have surgery because of something you put on. It's never going to be the way you want it. And then ultimately, as part of this audit, how many of your risks are actually just like well-packaged repetitions of things that you already excel at, right? So don't, like, hear me correctly. I'm not asking you to chase masochism or chaos. I'm asking you to just be honest about your blind spots. And that's the same thing that I would always talk to when I was coaching people. I said, hey, there's one way for you to break my heart in this, and that's if you allow yourself to hide, not truly get uncomfortable, not submit to a process that is going to make you find out things about yourself that you otherwise wouldn't have known because you've truly pushed it. You've been willing to expose yourself. You've been willing to be vulnerable. That's the hallmark of a great professional. And I think of a gentleman that I worked with named Leon Hall, had a very long, successful career in the NFL. One of the dudes I respect the most because, basically said to me in a discussion, here's why I pay you. I pay you to find my weaknesses before other people do. So for Leon, I never had to explain that kind of stuff to him. Now, he wanted the drills explained, just like I explained the drills that we do at speaker school and the apprenticeship. People want information, that's fine, but he never hid. So I think you're going to get a lot of answers that vary from, like that question. You ask a million people, what's the hardest thing about coaching? Oh, well, this or that, or the governing bodies, or getting people to stay motivated or whatever. No, it's getting people to deal with inner conflict, cut the bullshit, and expose themselves in a very real way, and ensuring you create the conditions necessary for them to answer that call again and again and again. Because the truth about leadership is that it is a soul-sucking siege of never-ending darkness sometimes, but you'll get these little glimpses of light when you have these breakthroughs, and it is something that it is a great privilege, right? Both self-leadership and leading others, but it also comes with a tremendous cost, and that cost only gets greater if you yourself are not doing the work and you don't create the conditions necessary for other people to do that. So yeah, I'm by the way, I'm tired. Like, people can come after me all they want for that. You make leadership sound so downtrodden. No, I don't. I'm just telling you this shit's harder than half of these self-help books want you to believe it is. There's plenty of leaders that, more often than they want to admit, spend their evenings looking up at the ceiling fan thinking, holy shit, how am I going to pull this off? And then of course there's people from like Jensen Huang from NVIDIA who, bang, bang, but you talk to him, you listen to some of his old interviews when NVIDIA first started, my God. So I'm actually just advocating for honesty. I'm advocating for people to be more honest about what it takes to get out of your comfort zone, what it takes to expose yourself, what it takes to truly commit to a process that actually fundamentally at its core gives you the necessary ingredients of growth. And for that to happen, there has to be fear. There has to be fear. There has to be some ego death. And Jesus, guys, if we don't get this done, we're looking at a very interesting world in the future. Okay? So color me bitter, whatever you want to do. No, it's not a sales thing for you to come to apprenticeships or speaker school. And if it was, still wouldn't apologize. That's why these things are created. Is Apple going to apologize for offering computers? The mission of Art of Coaching, right, is to help people become the versions of themselves they need to be to make the biggest difference in the world or the people around them. That requires meeting conflict head on. That requires doing hard shit. That requires improved communication. That requires better self-awareness. That requires going on a journey and realizing, holy shit, I may not be as good at this as I thought I was. But instead of that making me rationalize all these things and get defensive, I lean into it. I bare my teeth. I do more. I quit bullshitting. Answer the call. I hope this helps. If you don't need it, great. Pass it on to somebody else. If you don't like it, it might have put a mirror to you. Okay? No, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to tell you fundamental truths. And anybody that tells you that, commitment is convenient and that you should just stay within your comfort zone and never do things that make you feel fearful or exposed or even like a failure, or that you shouldn't, be open about the dark side of leadership and lean into that, is somebody, I don't know how that's being committed to growth. Right? But there's a lot of people out there that will bullshit you, and those are the ones usually trying to sell you a product that ultimately doesn't lead to anything good. All right. I'd love to hear from you. You hate it? Reach out. You love it? Reach out. You pass it to a buddy? Reach out. You applied this in some other way? Reach out. Some of you reach out to you like you have so many great things to say yourselves. I love it. Please keep it coming. We read the emails. For those of you in our Mighty Networks community, let's talk about this more. I love all of you guys to death. I hope I see some of you at an event in the future. Answer the call. Do the work. It's the only way to grow.